to discuss the five major turning points of the medieval church, beginning with the fall of Rome. In the 4th and 5th century, the fall of Rome was one of the most important aspects of the medieval church, beginning in 395 with the Visigoths. As he moved through the Balkans with his army, looking for food and money, their leader, Alaric, demanded that the city of Rome gives him a decent payout. The city of Rome refused his demands in 408, and they attacked. Later, he sacked Rome for 3 days, asking for a part of Italy. While this was happening, other Germanic tribes like the Franks, Vandals, Ostrogoths, and Anglo-Saxons were also moving throughout Europe, forcing the Romans to withdraw their forces, weakening the empire. In 455, Vandals sacked Rome again, and in 476, Romulus Augustus was deposed by a German master. This was an official end of the Roman Empire. Although it technically remained, it was taken over by German tribes, and the cultural and political traditions of Rome still was practiced by the Germans. This time proved the importance of the church after the fall, as people turned to it for guidance in their faith. Continuing on to the 7th and 8th century, it is important to take a look at the Carolingian dynasty, which was facing a period of decline due to their lack of trade, their economy struggling, and their literacy being strictly defined for the clergy. This time was considered to be the Dark Ages, but the Christian church found success around Europe, gaining support from the Pope and other Frankish kings. This all turned around when Charles the Great, otherwise known as Charlemagne, was faced with all these situations. His successful work was one of the most important of the medieval ages, as he used his military to expand the kingdom, almost double its size. As a great warrior, he dominated areas, and he threatened death to those who didn't convert to Christianity. He was crowned by the Pope to be the Emperor of the Romans, which helped establish the Holy Roman Empire. Charlemagne built a dynasty filled with rich culture and a strong economy. He was a passionate and solidified leader who strived for both unity and success. He also helped form the Carolingian Renaissance, where he brought scholars in to study, learn, and teach readings of Christianity. This was ultimately a huge revival of the arts and the continuous spread of Christianity during the medieval ages. The Western Schism during the 14th and 15th century was also a major turning point for the medieval church. This began when the Avignon papacy supported an anti-pope who resided in Avignon rather than Rome. The countries that supported this were France, Castile, Aragon, Scotland, and many more. This abandonment of Rome was caused by the Roman cardinals turning against the Pope at the time, Urban VI, where they created a manifesto, and they allowed Clement VII to come to power. These problems continued at the Council of Pisa during 1409, and this led to neither of the popes to step down, and a third pope was created, Alexander V. This was later settled at the Council of Constance between 1414 and 1418, and this cleared the church of any of the popes who refused to concede. The Western Schism ultimately affected the medieval church because it greatly divided it between Rome and Avignon due to the cardinals' conflicting political views of their leadership. These lasting internal issues within the church lasted many centuries later throughout Europe. This led to consequences leading to the 100 Years' War between England and France. A massive turning point for the medieval church was the Crusades, which took 400 years and affected many lives. It began with Alexius I, who was the Byzantine Empire during the late 11th century. He called on the Pope to defend Constantinople against invading Muslims. He was taking land for the Seljuk Empire. Pope Urban II responded. He gave a general call for Christians to defend fellow Christians, otherwise known as their brothers. In the end, 50,000 to 70,000 men reached Jerusalem to go on pilgrimage, and some went to fight to take back the Holy Land that they believed that was theirs as it belonged to God. Alexei I was only looking for a few mercenaries, yet he was given an entire army, where he sent these soldiers to the south to go fight, and they were ultimately slaughtered by Celtics. But in 1099, Jerusalem was taken by the Christians. There's a huge price to pay for this, though, as out of the 100,000 people who went on crusade, only 14,000 returned. There are many rewards for the journey, and this reflects the idea of pilgrimage, and the Pope gave indulgences to the Crusaders. The Crusades caused many debate over the years, as the moral consequences taken by the Christians going to kill the Muslims was considered immoral and unethical. The final important time during the medieval church was the 12th century Renaissance, which was considered to be the rebirth of Roman civilization. To begin, there are many changes in the way food was produced, as there is an increase in the use of the heavy plow and the three-field crop rotation method. As the food production increased, it allowed for a greater population and a more stable society. As a result of this, the rise of urbanization of towns and cities increased the amount of trade and the high amounts of food production there was. Also, guilds helped to the rise of urbanization, which helped create rules and regulations in different labor industries. The revival and recovery of these Roman works and Greek science and philosophy opened up new education to people that was completely unavailable before. Also, the rediscovery of Roman works in law allowed for a new court system and a standardized church bureaucracy. The new forms of art, like music and architecture, drove the Renaissance throughout the entire 12th century. It is also to take into account the different works by philosophers and teachers of the time, like St. Thomas Aquinas, who wrote Summa Theology. In this, he explained how he would go about teaching the works of Christianity to his followers in universities as they began to rise during the 12th century Renaissance. He explores the nature of God and different religious manners, in which he takes a philosophical approach to this. Another philosopher of the time was Abelard and his lover Eloise. He proved that the education and university system was changing, and they showed that romance and the repercussions of it showed prevalent, as Eloise was enticed to begin to follow Christianity thanks to Abelard, and this was looked as frowned upon during the time. To conclude, there are way too many turning points of the medieval church to look at, but some of the most important ones to consider is the fall of Rome, the 12th century Renaissance, the rise of Charlemagne and his success, the Great Divide of the Western Schism, and the bloody wars of the Crusades.